Hello, in this video I'm going to show you some chat client capabilities that might be useful for you. And the first thing I want to start with is default advisors. So Builder allows us to set some default advisors. And advisors allow modification of data used in the request or response. And to create advisor, we need to implement request response advisor. I want to create some kind of custom logger, so let's create new class for this purpose. Gonna be logger advisor. And we have to implement request response advisor. Okay, we can override some methods like advice request and advice response. Here we will just return request, we will not change it, as well as here we will not change response, but you can change both request and response if you want. So what I want to do is to log something here. Let's say I want to see the model I sent request to and user text with system text. So I'm going to get request ChatOptions model. Next thing I want to is user text and system text. Okay, to log it, I'm going to use slf4j from Lombok and simply put log info and let it be request to some model, and I put model. Also, I wanna log user text and system text. Okay, and for response, let's say I want to log some metadata, like response get metadata. Response metadata and put metadata here. And to add our logger advisor, I go to OpenAI service and put new advisor here. Let's run the application. Go to the Postman, send our request, and in logs, I can see that request is sent to GPT-4o model, user text, system text, and I can see some response metadata here, with token usage, and so on. Okay, now you see that we use the default model, which is GPT-4o, but what if I want to change it? And that's where we can use default options. So I'm going to use default options. As you can see, it accepts chat options, and there is default implementation for chat options, which is default chat options. It has some parameters here, but we have specific one for OpenAI, which has much more options. So the option I need is model. So what I'm going to do is use OpenAI ChatOptions.builder.build and put here with model. And I can choose it from chat model dot, and you can see here the list of available models. So let's say 3.5 turbo and rerun the application. Now send request, and you can see that request is sent to GPT 3.5 turbo model, which means the model was changed successfully. What we also can set to chat client is default user and default system, which are just default user message and system message. So we simply put default user and put some user text and default system with system text. Also, we can set default functions, and functions are separate topics, so I will tell you about them in the next video. Now let's go back to default options because there are more options, and let's have a look at them. So model is just changes model, we already did use it. Next one is frequency penalty, and it is a setting that controls how much the AI model should avoid repeating the same words or phrases. A positive value means that model will be less likely to reuse words already used, and it helps to make the response more varied. Next one is logitBS. This setting allows you to adjust the likelihood of specific words or tokens appearing in the AI's response. And you provide a JSON object mapping token IDs to BS values from -100 to 100. A higher BS increases the chance of token being selected, while lower BS reduces it. And to understand this, we need to understand what a token ID is. So let's go to platform OpenAI tokenizer and use some examples. So if I put hello world here, I can see tokens. And if I click tokens ID, I will see IDs of each token. So 9906 is ID of hello, 1917 is ID of world, and so on. So to exclude the token hello, I need to put its ID, which is 9906, to logitBS map as a key, and value should be -100. But if I want to use the word hello more often, then I should put the into logitBS key 9906 and positive value from 1 to 100. So here I have an example. Let's say we have such logitBS map, key 9906 and value -100. This will completely prevent the token with ID 9906 from being selected. Next one is 1907 with value 50. It increases the likelihood of the token with ID 1907 being selected. And the next one is 0 with value -50, and this decreases the likelihood of the token with ID 0 being selected. Okay, next one is log props. This setting determines if the model should return the log probabilities of each word or token. And if it's set to true, the output will include the log probabilities along with the text, showing how confident the model was in choosing each word. Next one is top log props. This setting specifies how many of the likely tokens, up to 5, you want the model to return for each word or token position in the response, along with their log probabilities. This lets you see the top choices the model considered at each step. Next one is max tokens. This setting specifies the maximum number of tokens the model is allowed to generate in its response. If you set max tokens to 50, the model will generate up to 50 tokens in its response. Next one is N, and this setting specifies how many different response options the model should generate for each input. If you set N to 3, the model will generate 3 different responses to your input. But you should remember that each generated option will use tokens, so generating multiple options will increase the number of tokens used and therefore the cost. Next one is presence penalty. This setting is a value between -2 and 2, and that tells model to introduce new topics in its response. Basically, presence penalty is the same as frequency penalty, but it applies to topics or ideas instead of words or phrases. Next one is response format. This setting allows you to specify the format in which the model should output its response. It works the same way as the entity method that we already used. Next one is seed. This setting allows you to specify a value that the model uses to try to generate consistent response for the same input across repeated requests. So if you set a seed, the model will attempt to produce the same output each time when you have identical parameters and input. However, this behavior isn't better and determinism is not guaranteed. Next one is stop. This setting allows you to specify up to 4 sequences of text that, when encountered, will cause the model to stop generating further tokens. So if you set stop to end, the model will stop generating text when it encounters the word end in the response. In this case, as soon as the model generates the word end, it will stop generating any text. Next one is temperature. This setting controls the randomness of the model's input during text generation. It is value between 0 and 1, and higher temperature like 0.8 makes the output more random, creative and diverse, and the model will take more risks, leading to less predictable responses. And the lower temperature like 0.2 makes the output more focused and precise, and the model will be more conservative, sticking closely to the most likely choices. Next one is top P. It's similar to temperature in that it controls the randomness of the model's output, but it just works in a different way. So instead of adjusting the randomness across all potential outputs like temperature does, top P limits the model to consider only most likely tokens. And to determine the most likely tokens, it uses probability mass. For example, if top P is set to 0.1, the model will only consider the tokens that make up the top 10% of the total probability distribution. This can make the output more focused and prevent the model from choosing less likely and potentially more random tokens. Next one is tools. This setting allows you to provide a list of functions that the model can call during its operation, and the model can use these functions by generating the necessary JSON inputs to invoke them. So currently only functions are supported as tools, meaning the model can perform specific tasks by calling these predefined functions. And we will discuss functions later, and I will show you an example on how to use them. So now let's continue with other options. Next one is tool choice. This setting determines how the AI model decides whether to call a function or generate a message in response to an input. So if tool choice is none, the model will not call any function and will only generate message. If the tool choice is auto, the model can choose between generating a message or calling a function, depending on what it deems most appropriate. Also, you can force the model to call a particular function by specifying it in specific format with function name. By default, if no functions are available, the model uses none, and if functions are available, it uses auto. And the tool choice builder can help us create tool choice object to set this behavior. Next one is user. This parameter is like a unique tag that represents the person interacting with AI. It helps OpenAI keep track of who is using the system, which is important for monitoring usage and spotting potential issues. Think of it as a way to keep an eye on things without knowing exactly who the person is. Next is function callbacks and functions. And functions allows you to specify a list of functions by name that the model can call during a chat completion request. These functions need to be pre-registered in function callbacks. So if you set them with default options, they stay enabled for all chat requests. And this I will explain in the next video. Also, all these options can be configured in two ways, at a startup or at runtime. So to configure it at startup, use chat model to set default options here. And to configure it at runtime, we have two different ways to do that. So first one is to create prompt, new prompt. So you put here your content, and as a second parameter, you can put chat options like OpenAI chat options, builder build, and put any options here you want. Or if you don't use prompt, you can use method called options here and put your OpenAI options or any other options in this method. Runtime options have highest priority, which means that if there are non-empty runtime options, they will override the startup options. Okay, now let's change our springai schema according to what we have learned. So now we know that chat options can be configured at startup during chat model initialization or at runtime with each request. And these options are merged and used to create the request sent to the AI. Again, runtime options have highest priority, so it means that if there is non-empty runtime options, they will override startup options. Okay, we have covered ChatClient and ChatOptions here. See you in the next video.